backup! Save yourselves. Get out of here. Get out of here! Fucking bullshit, man! You hear me?
Today on Mondays with Mo, we're talking Battlefields. Specifically, Battlefield 4, but the franchise as a whole. Battlefield 4 just happens to be the game that I decided to revisit and play for this. Dove into some multiplayer, even some of the single player didn't really do spectacularly well in the multiplayer, but I felt it was a good pick. Out of all the Battlefields we could have went back and played, Battlefield 4 was the first one for me where I felt like I didn't really love the franchise anymore. Battlefield means as much to me as Gears of War or Halo ever did. It's a franchise that I grew up playing a lot of, specifically Battlefield 2, 1942, and even 2142, and then a lot of Bad Company and Battlefield 3. Bad Company 2 specifically was the first time that I felt like the franchise had really been sort of reignited. My passion had been reignited for it, and it was also a point in time when I was playing with lots of my friends, so it was obviously a lot more fun, a lot more memorable. So when Battlefield 3 was first like revealed, I remember playing the beta, and it was just like, it was unbelievable, you know? It felt like a true leap forward for the franchise, and it is still to this day my favorite entry in Battlefield. Like, there's just something about 3, man, that it was so many good moments, so many good memories, just the things they did, some of the mechanics they implemented. It's just a lot of good teamwork memories, a lot of good proper Battlefield moments, if you will. And for some reason, Battlefield 4, I think, lost its touch with the ability to deliver on those Battlefield moments. I felt like I had to play so much longer, like I had to endure so much more of the game, you know, situations in the game where I wasn't really enjoying it before I got to one of those Battlefield moments. I constantly felt like the vehicles just messed up the play more than they ever did before. It was always so hard for me, and it's still hard for me today to really pinpoint what it is about Battlefield 4 that made it less special to me than Battlefield 3. I think one factor that I always like to bring into the discussion is just the fact that I had been playing Battlefield for so long at that point. You know, it was like, dude, you've been playing Battlefield for thousands and thousands of hours across many, many years. You know, maybe at some point you're just kind of not really interested in the franchise anymore. But I think it was more than that. You know, I think it was a culmination of my frustration with the sniper rifle rolls, the way vehicles were handled, some of the maps that focus on Levolution where I don't think it needed to be there all the time. It was just a lot of small things that I think always managed to drag down the things that I did love about Battlefield 4. In fact, BF4 was the first time that I really said to myself, you know, it's clear that there's good things here, but it's also clear that my personal disdain for some of these changes is weighing on me in such a way that I just can't enjoy this game anymore, and I should probably stop playing it. And Battlefield 4 would end up being my least played Battlefield. You know, as beautiful as it looked to play it on PC even, I think I would only put in maybe, you know, it's a weird game actually, because I started playing it on the Xbox 360, and I actually really liked it there with the smaller player count. I remember having a good time, and then the Xbox One came out, and I switched my copy to that, and played it maybe there for 150 hours, didn't really enjoy all 150 hours, and then I might have played it for like another 50 hours or more just to play with my brother and my friend, because it was like the only game the three of us had to play together, and I was just always miserable. I was always miserable. I started playing it on PC, and the graphical improvement, playing with mouse and keyboard, like brought the passion back a little bit, but not having my good friends there, you know, meant that that quickly wore out, and I was back to where I was. And then I ended up spending a lot more time just messing around with cinematic tools and taking pictures and enjoying the game for that than I did for any of its gameplay. You know, Battlefield 1 would release, and I actually loved a lot of the gunplay mechanics in Battlefield 1. I liked sort of the restrictions on scopes and things like that. And I did really like Battlefield 1. I played a lot of it. I enjoyed it, but again, it couldn't really bring me back to my Battlefield 3 days. What is it about that, you know? Like, again, I can point out all of the gameplay mechanical changes, you know, and we can say, oh, they made these little changes here and there. But is that enough? I think it is, you know, and I think that's the startling thing with games, especially a singular franchise, is that one or two or three individual mechanics that may seem meaningless on their own actually have such a substantial influence on the experience as a whole, you know, like bloom or no bloom in Halo. Such a controversial thing that's clearly, you know, redefined the way a lot of people look at Halo, or whether or not they love it or don't love it over the years. It's been tweaked and redefined. And I think the same can be said for how like recoil has been handled, how vehicles have been handled, how the recon class has been handled. If there's one thing I could pick out, though, right? One thing that Battlefield 3, I think, did better than all of the Battlefields after it, it's just map design. You know, when we talk about the recon role being really frustrating for me individually, we all have that one thing in a game that frustrates us maybe more than it frustrates most people. Like, for as much as people love the sniper role in Battlefield, I've always felt like just get rid of it or limit it, you know, find a way to make it so each team only gets a certain number of sniper rifles. I've always been such a diehard firefight fanatic. And sniper rifles don't really typically play into firefights. Like, I understand they give people those sort of hero moments, like, oh, dude, I saved my teammate. I sniped that guy off the ATV as he was about to run over my teammate. You know, like, I sniped that guy as he's about to knife my teammate. Like, yeah, but they happen so sparingly. And I think the flip side of that is just all of the negatives that happen from having, like, an entire freaking team just obsessed with the recon role, that I would throw the recon role. I would throw the concept of sniper rifles. DMRs, short range, you know, medium range scopes, 4X scopes, fine. You know, maybe make that role specifically a DMR role. Let's, like, actually make it a designated marksman role. Let's make it about supporting your team and not make it about 32X scopes on these giant maps. You know, that's Battlefield 3 for me. The best maps in Battlefield 3 weren't the big open ones. It was the maps that had a really good combination of CQC combat, like close quarters combat, and more open lines of sight. And that's why, like, I loved the beta map. I loved some of the exterior areas of Metro. Hell, I even loved the interior of Metro. You know, it might have been sort of a meat grinder, but it kind of worked. It kind of played out well. And, you know, there's one big thing in there that everyone hated in Battlefield that I loved, and I know I'll get flack for this from Battlefield fans. I loved the suppression mechanic. When Battlefield 3 added the suppression mechanic, and I felt like I could just lay down support fire with the light machine gun, it was a beautiful thing. You know, again, to me, it added to the firefight. Everybody, I think, becomes ultra obsessed with, like, Battlefield being this purely skill-based experience, but it's never been that. Like, skill matters, no doubt, but saying that someone who uses a light machine gun to suppress the enemy for their team isn't being skillful just because they're not killing anyone, I think isn't at all in the nature of the heart of what makes Battlefield Battlefield, or what Battlefield should be about. I thought Battlefield 3 excelled at allowing people to play that support role, that suppressive role, and that was such a wonderful feeling. You know, I love rushing people with the shotgun and landing headshots just as much as anyone else, but being able to break out, you know, the M249 and the Bravo and just actually suppress the team while my team flanked and pushed, that felt so quintessentially fucking Battlefield, man. And the fact that people got so fed up with it over time, or like, it's just not skill-based, and F that guy who gets points just for suppressive fire, always blew my mind. You know, Battlefield should have been a game about teamwork. It always should be a game about teamwork and cooperation and tactics, even in a large-scale environment where maybe tactics aren't the easiest thing to develop. You know, and the suppression mechanic just always allowed players to do that, I think, directly or indirectly, and I loved it for that. I did, man. I miss it so much. I miss it being in Metro, throwing my bipod up on the top of a box and just buzzsawing, you know, watching my team push up through one of the corridors, flanking with their shotguns and their flashlights out. It's just, man, it was just so many good moments and memories that I never got to really redevelop or relive in Battlefield 4 or in Battlefield 1. You know, perhaps because of a lack of that mechanic, the map design, you know, a culmination of all of these problems that sort of melded into one. So Battlefield 3 will forever be my favorite Battlefield, and Battlefield 4 will forever be the first time that I felt like I didn't love Battlefield anymore. I'm really excited, actually, for Battlefield 2018. Just to see what the team does. I'm always excited for new releases, just because I want to see how it plays out. Even if it doesn't play out the way I want it to, even if it's a massive disaster, I'm always interested to see from a gameplay perspective how things are handled. There's no doubt that EA will go out of their way to totally F cosmetics and crates and everything else up as much as they can, like they did with Battlefield 1. But I do want to see how the gameplay pans out. I want to see what DICE is able to deliver. You know, how many years later, the fact that they're even still iterating on it, it's still successful enough that they can release another game is actually kind of impressive within itself. So, yeah. There's my Battlefield, my little Battlefield story. Some Battlefield memories, good and bad, if you will. If you've got some good and bad Battlefield memories to share, let me know down in the comment section below. When was the first time you fell in love with the franchise? And when was the first time that you felt like you no longer loved the franchise? Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
You have been brought here for a purpose, the most important task of your lives.